Hello and welcome back to Three Word Interviews. This week's guest is Carl Donnelly. Welcome to Three Word Interviews.
Yes.
So obviously, like we do with everyone, we're going to get you to pick 3 words on the board.
Yep.
So feel free and then pop your words down at the bottom.
Very differing sizes. And you're saying everyone's got all of them in so far?
Yes.
Well, prepare for the first person to not get any of them in.
So the winner will be the first person to guess all 3 of your words.
Yeah.
And do you want to tell the viewers what they're going to win?
Yes, I do. There's a story behind this. Not everyone will want to win this. What it is a very lovely, decorative Tottenham pendant. This is recording the week that Tottenham's manager Mauricio Pochettino was ruthlessly fired by Daniel Levy, our chairman. I cancelled my Tottenham membership in disgust the night it happened. I've been a member for years, and I'm a lifelong Tottenham fan. And I literally heard the news. I went home and I cancelled my Tottenham membership, and this was the only remnants I have of that this year's membership pack. Everything else went in the bin. This pendant is my last trinket of Tottenham, so I'm giving it to the lucky winner, and he gets all 3 words. And I will say, just as a little clue, I've not said any of them yet.
So as we do all our interviews, we'll go back to the beginning. Now, you started getting into comedy at about 22, 23, right?
Yeah, I think I was 23 when I did my first gig.
Okay.
But I got interested in comedy in that sort of 21, 22 age range.
Yeah. So how did you get into comedy? What was...
I was sort of... I was always dropping out of things and never knew what I wanted to do. You know, like I wasn't great at school, I didn't really like it, and then I tried uni, dropped out of uni, tried different jobs. I sort of zigzagged between jobs, and then just never found something I really loved. And then I remember just one day going to a comedy show for the first time, like at very early 20s, and it was like a film, you know, when you're watching something and you have that like a light bulb moment. It was that. I don't know why. Everyone else I was with, my friends were watching it, and everyone was laughing and enjoying it, and I was too. But for some reason, there was also a little part of me that was so interested in the actual dynamics of it, and I was interested in that person on stage and what was going through their mind at that point.
Yeah.
And that was, as I'd never done any performing or anything, like I wasn't even a massive comedy fan growing up. That sounds sort of sad. I didn't watch a lot. You know, I'm not a comedy purist. You know, I'm not one of these people who's like, I love Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin and all that stuff. I just was a normal kid who just happened to see it live one day and went, right, that's for me, that.
Yeah. And obviously you mentioned your first gig. Do you remember the first subject of your initial jokes?
Oh, it was yucky. It was I did a routine that I then later saw Peter Kay do a proper version of, like within probably about 2 years of me doing it. I saw him do such a good funny version, but you know, it was very much an observation of its time, just, you know, of that nostalgia type of comedy. It was about Bullseye and the gifts or the prizes people won on Bullseye. You know, when they you know, sort of, you give somebody a flipping speedboat and they lived in like a, you know, council flat in Peckham. It's like, what are you going to do with that, mate? So it was like, you know, when you're new, a 2-minute routine feels big.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing Peter Kay do like a 10-minute version that was just brilliant.
And then obviously, you know, the fact you've been in comedy for like 15 years, you've had a lot of looks in your time, should we say?
Actually. I've had I tend to. I was talking about this to somebody recently, and they were saying they've witnessed all my eras and hairdos and glasses and all that.
Yeah. I mean, they've been very statemented with the word.
I think so. But I described it to them in the sense of, you can always tell when something has happened in my life that is a bit dodgy by the fact that I suddenly have a total I'm changing my look. And I think the image changes you could put them on a graph and they'd be exactly the same times.
Yeah.
You know, that would be like, right, that was the depression years. It's like, oh, you bought some eyeliner, did you? So yeah, it was Yeah, they've always been a reaction to probably me just needed to change something to cheer myself up.
And do you look back at any of your looks and think, I probably shouldn't have done that, or regret any of it?
Oh,
Or...
I would say every one of them until 2 years ago. I genuinely think I was quite a overweight teen, and I genuinely think it set me up as I always had a lot of self-esteem issues.
Yeah.
And every time I change my look, it's me trying to find something where I just feel comfortable in myself. And actually, it was probably only maybe 3 or 4 years ago where I just realised you can change all the external stuff you want. But if you haven't got your head right, you're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
So I think I finally just got to a point where I was sort of happy with myself.
Yeah.
And since then, I've just calmed down and I'm pretty standard looking now. I've got, I'm wearing normal clothes. I'm only actually genuinely wearing this because it's winter and I like wearing, because I've shaved my head quite short at the minute, so this is just like I don't want to look like a sort of skinhead. So yeah, I feel most of them I probably look back with a little bit of like, oh god, what was I doing?
Yeah.
But they're not. They were, it was all. You can't change the past, can you?
No, exactly.
So say.
And I mean, obviously, with social media these days, it's gonna, if you have a look or whatever, it's gonna be online somewhere, so you can't really get rid of it.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, do you find that social media has sort of changed the way even comedians work in terms of how you get your stuff out there, or is there a hindrance to any of it? Well,
there's loads of hindrances. Like I think I love the fact it does give you options to, like, if you think of an idea, the brilliant thing about stand-up, and this is what I think attracted me to it, is unlike any creative outlet, if you have an idea, you can sort of be doing it that night. If you've got a gig in the diary, you can have a funny idea in the afternoon, and then think, right, I wonder if that's funny. And 4 hours later, you're on stage saying it to an audience, and you'll find out if it's funny.
Yeah.
If you're a musician, if you're writing a song that day, it's not like you can just obviously you can go to an open mic music gig, but they're sort of a bit fewer and further between than comedy clubs. And if you're a big musician, you can't just go, right, I can just roll that out tonight. There's no real instant outlet. If you're a filmmaker or if you're a theatre director or any of these things, you can't just have an idea and then get it out there. Stand-up gives you that. And one thing about things like Instagram and Twitter, for all their negatives, you can do that with them. Like Twitter, sometimes I'll have a joke idea that I'd about to be attacked by a dog. But on Twitter, if you have an idea for a joke, sometimes I'll have an idea and think that wouldn't work for me as stand-up. Who brings a dog to a hotel? I think the dog's now angry it's not allowed to check in. So Twitter and Instagram give you a little outlet of, maybe that would work as a silly tweet, or maybe that would work. So it does. It's also, you can use it to workshop ideas.
Yeah.
At the same time, you do have to then accept that you have to be in a cesspit of madness of people shouting at each other all the time.
Yeah.
Squawking at each other.
So obviously, I mean, you've done a lot of TV and radio work. I mean, do you have a favourite show that you've been on, or?
Favourite show? Do you know the favourite bit of television I ever did was Alan Davis as Yet Untitled. I don't know why I clapped there. I was trying to remember what the show was called, and I realised it hasn't got a title. That's the point. The reason I love that is because it was the least scripted. Like, what I mean is, it was the least controlled show I've ever been involved in. I've sort of, I don't think I was ever particularly comfortable on the couple of little panel show things I did. I didn't really, and this isn't a criticism of them, this is more on me. I think I'd probably be a bit better at it now, but I think when I did them, I was so self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
And I was really self-conscious about that fact that you're sitting in a line, basically all waiting your turn. And I didn't, at the time, I didn't really have the, self-esteem to fully enjoy it. I always felt it was too much pressure. But that Alan Davis one, I loved it because it genuinely felt like this. It felt like you're just having a chat.
Yeah.
And there just happens to be cameras. So I really, that I think was the thing that was closest to my, what I enjoy doing.
So coming away from the TV work, your podcast, you've got 2 going at the moment, right?
I do. Yeah, I do two podcasts. One is called Babysitting Trevor, which is currently on a hiatus because Chris Martin, who is one third of it, moved to LA. And so we used to do a podcast together called the Carl and Chris podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he moved. So Babysitting Trevor is currently on a break. We've got one season in the can we're releasing soon. It's really fun, that one. That's sort of, it's got a purpose to it, you know?
Yeah.
Me and the other one I do, Two Vegan Idiots, is with Julian Dean, who's so funny. But that is just me and him chatting to a guest. And it's normally me trying to interview a guest and Julian butting in with really horrendous comments. So that's fun. But yeah, the other one, Babysitting Trevor, is much more of like a concept. We've got a friend called Trevor Crook who is one of the most eccentric people on earth. He's sort of like an Australian Carl Pilkington, and me and Chris send Trev off to yoga classes and make him do funny little things that are very much outside his comfort zone.
And who would be your dream guest if you could have any guest?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard one, isn't it? It's that weird one where I don't think they'd be a good guest. You know what I mean? Like my heroes would be, I think, terrible podcast guests, because like Shane McGowan or someone like that, who, you know, I grew up. He's my favourite singer and songwriter, but you know, you can hardly string a sentence together in conversation when you see him in interviews. So yeah, I'd suppose maybe him, or who else would be very good? I don't know, they're all dead as well, aren't they? Prince would have been one, but he died. Everyone dies. That was the saddest musician death of my lifetime, Prince. You know, I know everyone had Bowie or George Michael was a big one for some, but for me, when Prince died, that absolutely done me in, just so you know. By the way, that's not... Prince isn't one of these. That is genuinely. I've done the three of those. It's a miracle. I squeezed them in ages ago, mate.
So on that note, we're gonna what's next? What's next in the world of Carl Donnelly?
Mainly extremism. No, I don't know. At the minute, I've actually just confirmed my Australia tour. That's a bad word. I'm going to two places. My extensive Australia tour next year. I am doing my Edinburgh show from this year. I'm not doing a tour of it because I find touring quite lonely. You know, when you're a big name, you tour. You know, if financially it works, you can have a tour manager, support act, and everything. It's quite good. But actually, when you're sort of, you know, when you're in that sort of middling thing where you're playing like little art centres and, you know, the studios in sort of bigger theatres, you actually, once you take into the sort of costs of those extras, you end up. That's why you end up. Most comics of that and my level actually just tour on our own. So we'll do, which I actually enjoy in terms of format, because that means the whole night is yours. So I'll do a show that will be like 45 minutes, then a break, and then another 45 minutes or 50 minutes or an hour. So it's quite a long show, but it also is one of the loneliest things you could ever do. Doing a tour on your own, where you're the only person get into the venue. You know, the only people you'll talk to all day are the venue staff, and then you actually talk to the crowd. That's not real conversation, is it? It's a one-way conversation, which is stand-up. So there's times where I've done ones like, I remember going to Berwick upon Tweed, doing a show, and I went out in the first 45 minutes, really fun, and it really hit me. I went backstage afterwards. I sat in a dressing room, knowing that everyone else was out in the bar having a chat and a drink, and I'm just there waiting for them to come and sit back down. So I do a tour every couple of years because I just can't handle how bleak it is. So this year I'm just doing a handful of places like festivals and stuff like that where I know I can mentally cope. And I'll do Australia. And me and Julian are actually going to do a live podcast at the Vaults Festival in London, which should be fun. We've not done one of them since we started the podcast.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so just try and sort of train him up so he doesn't get us cancelled for saying something horrendous.
Well, we really appreciate you coming down.
No worries,
having a chat with us.
Good to chat. Good luck with those, because I mean they were tricky, but I reckon I absolutely nailed a couple of them.
So if you think you know what the words are, make sure you leave a comment down below with your guesses, or head over to our Instagram where there's a picture of Carl and comment on that.
I think I got two in one sentence, I think. Did I? It was very quick. There was a real quick succession where I just knocked off two really quickly, Then I waited 5 minutes and hit you with the third.
Make sure you check out all of Carl's links down below, and also hit subscribe, hit the bell for all our upcoming interviews.